It's beer o'clock on Real Ale Craft Beer. Today we've got a beer from Turpin's Brewery in Cambridge, and this is a can of their Cambridge Black Stout, coming in at 4.6% ABV in a 330ml can. There's a look at the can. We've had the mango pale ale, which was pretty good. And now it's time to get this can out into a glass and see what we get. Going to say at this stage of the beer review, this beer rolled down the back of my cupboard. It is a year-old stout. But being a stout, lots of roasted malt, I'm fully expecting it to be okay. Without further ado, let's get the beer out into a glass and see what we get. So everything this beer does at this stage, I'm going to take a bit of a blind eye. I'm going to turn the other cheek, as they say, a little bit, because, okay, if I opened that beer up when it was completely fresh, perhaps it wouldn't have done that. Perhaps there was a little bit of re-fermentation in the can after being in the can for a year. So we're not going to worry about that little bit of overspill. I always tend to open my beers over the sink anyway, so there's never any drama with getting stout all over my cream sofa. It's just, I've opened so many beers over the years that I know that you do get quite a bit of, I mean, it's craft beer. It's craft beer. It's all handmade beer. You're going to get a little bit of an overspill every now and again. Oh, we've definitely got a bit of re-fermentation in the can. You can see it. The can felt quite stiff. Squeezing the sides of it, it felt quite stiff before I opened it. But on we go. We're gonna crack on with this one. We really are. Being the fact that I've drank well over 7,000 beers now on the channel, I will be able to dissect this beer, pull this beer apart, and tell you what the beer would have tasted like back when it was fresh. A lot of the flavour would have stayed. There might be, well, it's definitely going to be carbonated. It's definitely going to be like a really hissy fizzy stout, whereas before it probably wasn't. But other than that, you might get a little bit of a funky flavour, maybe, but I'm not overly expecting that either. What I am expecting is a big frothy top lip any minute now. We got a 3 to 4 finger tan coloured head, jet black beer in the glass. There's no light bleeding through there whatsoever. Good levels of carbonation. Looks like a medium to thin bodied stout. Okay, let's get this frothy top lip out the way. It's actually very, very good. It's a very, very good stout. It's nicely carbonated. Yes, it's nicely carbonated. Chocolate, coffee, caramel coming from the roasted malt. Creamy, rich and oaty. Biscuity and bready. It's lovely. It's a lovely, lovely stout. I've opened up beers in the past, albeit some of these beers were 10% ABV. But I know of a Polish blogger, my good friend Tomek Kapira. I know he's opened up a regular kind of lager from like 25 years ago, Polish lager, in a bottle as well. You know, you're going to get some oxidization from the top of a bottle because the cap lets in this tiny amounts of air. So over 25 years, you know, that's quite a bit. But he poured out this lager, 25-year-old lager, and it was fine, absolutely fine. So I was very, very confident that this stout was going to be okay after a year old. It is okay. It's got a lovely mouthfeel, it's creamy, it's rich, lovely roasted malt flavours coming through. Okay, we can overlook the fact that it's a bit carbonated. We had a little bit of second fermentation going on. But I actually quite like that. The beer definitely has oats. I can taste the oats. I can feel the creamy, rich, oaty mouthfeel on my palate. But at the same time, because it's kind of like re-fermented itself, and a little bit of second re-fermentation, it's like overly carbonated now. It's really rich and creamy, but it's like throwing the beer around in the inside of the mouth. The carbonation is pushing the beer around a little bit more. And it's making the beer creamy but lively. Creamy but lively. It's quite an interesting experience, actually. So, why does a brewer add a load of oats to a beer, to a stout? I think there's two reasons. The first reason is we've lived in a market where, a beer market, where there's been a dominant stout player for the last 40, 50 years. That being that lovely Irish company over there, brewing their stouts in Dublin. And they've always gone along the lines of stout is strong, and you see the old posters and the old metal signs that they used to make and the adverts that they used to make. Guinness makes you strong, and you see women walking wheelbarrows around with a pint of Guinness strapped to their face, that sort of thing. But the other thing they did in the late 90s was they did that kind of like horse, the horse adverts with the horses running down the beach, and you could see the carbonate. It wasn't carbonation at that point. It was just nitrogen. It was just nitrogen thrown into the stout, but it gave for an imagination of big and thick and creamy, and that's what they went for. So that's the first reason why I think, or one of the reasons why stouts have a lot of oats in it. The second reason is because of all the roasted malt in the beer, the chocolate, the coffee, the caramel flavours. That's what the roasted malt gives off. If you think of a coffee, bitter dark chocolate, bitter coffee, they're generally kind of creamy things when you eat them or you intake them, especially if you like what I like, which is like a mocha latte coffee style. Nice and strong, but creamy and rich. Same with chocolate, bitter dark chocolate, that same thing. Rich and creamy in your mouth. So what the brewer does, they add oats to the beer to replicate that big, creamy, thick mouthfeel, to compensate or to work with the roasted malt in the beer. Does that make sense to you guys? I'm desperate to get the rest of this beer in the can. There we go, we did it right at the end of the review. We're in. We're in. So, this is the final look at the beer. Jet black beer in the glass. Look at that, lovely, rich and creamy look to it. Yeah, they're Turpin's Brewery, Cambridge. Water, hops, yeast, wheat, oats, malted barley and gluten. They're at Swanson Trade Park, Cambridge, if you're around that area. I'm going to rate it 4.6% ABV for a year-old stout. I'm going to overlook the fact that it was over-carbonated. That was just a natural thing that happened in the can over the age of the life of the beer. The fact that it's a year old, it's had lots of time for that second fermentation to kick in. If you drank it fresh, like the brewer's supposed or wants you to, then you're not gonna get any of those kind of issues. I like the beer. I think it's a really, really good stout, a really good example of a stout, and I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 from Real Ale Craft Beer. Please put your comments in the comments box. Subscribe to our daily beer and food reviews. Give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom! Cheers.